Dagmar Fabian for Crab Shell Alliance of Greater Baltimore, Maryland. I keep hearing that we will be transporting our waste to a permanent site. Of course, you all know that no such site has been identified. We all know that Yucca Mountain has been closed. So what is the idea of transporting masses of waste on our roads, leading through community, having the risk of accidents? It is undoable. This is not a solution. I'm also very surprised that nobody has apparently studied the book by Dr. Arjun Makhijani, who laid out for us a path to nuclear-free, carbon-free future. I recommend you all read it. Then we don't need to worry about more expansion of nuclear power. We go to wind and other energies that are truly sustainable and do not endanger life. This is the real goal. And so I have to repeat, the storage in Hoss is just a transitionary, although best from those that are offered. They cannot be transported because most of them are not even licensed for transport. So everything has to be staying where they are now, and consequently, forget about transport. That's just insane. What we want are new policies to eventually close all those nuclear power plants down, start with decommissioning. It's very costly, as we all know, and then think of life beyond nuclear power, as has been laid out many times and calculated to be feasible. And there are plenty of states that are existing without nuclear power. This will be our goal, and preserving life is the uppermost goal.
Thank you. Thank you, Dagmar. And Mary Brooke? This is Mary Brooke Sunderland.
Hello, my name is Mary Brooke Sunderland, and I'm representing myself. I would like to say that I am wanting to focus on the big picture. The point of having this GEIS approved is to continue with the NRC licensing process. And when we think about what's been happening with nuclear power since its inception, I think we can only look at all the close calls we've had in this country and look at the accident in Chernobyl and Fukushima and see how those accidents have not only affected the nation where the accident occurred, but how any nuclear accident is really a worldwide problem. I think we need to look at that and apply the common sense that we all have inside and say, enough is enough. It's only by God's grace, God helping the NRC to do its job, protect the U.S. public from accidents, that we haven't had a major disaster in this country. And if we keep testing this, we will. With climate change, there are unforetold situations and circumstances that are going to be arising, and weather events are getting more and more extreme. We have to take a step back and just look at this. It's not okay. It's not okay to keep continuing with nuclear energy. We don't have a safe place to store it. Thank you. What kind of home or nation or anything runs efficiently when we don't have a place to clean up the waste? No city runs like that. How can we expect a type of energy to run like that? We can't. It's not okay. We need to stop any possible new licenses, and we need to phase out nuclear energy. With all the plants, when they become 40 years old, they need to be shut down. Thank you so much for hearing this comment.
Hello, I'm Kevin Camps, radioactive waste specialist at Beyond Nuclear. And I'd like to take my 3 minutes to set three things straight on the record. Some misleading statements that NRC has made in this draft generic environmental impact statement and at the hearings that have taken place. So I'd like to go back to a New York Times article in February of 2010, which was about the lawsuit brought by several states and several environmental groups that led to the court ruling in June of 2012 that ordered NRC to undertake the EIS proceeding. And in that article, top spokesman for the Office of Public Affairs at NRC made the statement that the nuclear waste confidence rule has nothing to do with licensing at NRC. And this statement, this idea has been carried into this document itself in various places. I'd like to read from section 7.3 on page 7.8, just the first paragraph. And I quote, "In the proposed action, the NRC implements a regulatory approach that includes an update to the Waste Confidence Rule, 10 CFR 51.23, that codifies the results of this draft GEIS. The update would clarify that, because the impacts of continued storage have been generically assessed in the GIS and codified in a rule, the NEPA analyses for future reactor and spent fuel storage facility licensing actions would not need to independently consider the environmental impacts of continued storage. The rule also serves to preclude any challenge to the NRC's assessment of the environmental impacts of continued storage in a site-specific licensing action, unless a petitioner can show that sufficient, quote, special circumstances, unquote, exist to justify waiving 10 CFR 51.23 in a particular proceeding. And they cite 10 CFR 2.335. And I end quote. So the statement that's been made is that this nuclear waste confidence rule has nothing to do with licensing new reactors or extending the licenses of old reactors. And this is very misleading. This is deceptive. In fact, the nuclear waste confidence rule lays the basis for that licensing. As I just quoted, it would bar public intervention in the future. It would lock the public out as much as we have been locked out for decades on raising the issue of high-level radioactive waste generation in licensing proceedings. And I can personally attest to that from the license extension proceeding at Palisades in Michigan, where we raised this issue, as well as the new reactor licensing proceeding at Fermi 3. This absolutely has to do with licensing. It lays the groundwork, it greases the skids. So NRC statements to the contrary in this document at these public hearings are quite misleading, actually. And I wanted to correct something from 2 nights ago in Chicago. A question was asked before the public comment period began, and Keith McConnell answered it, but incompletely, significantly incompletely, when you said that this document and this proceeding has to do with at-reactor storage, or perhaps you used the term on-site storage. Yes, that's true. There's an entire chapter about at-reactor on-site storage in this document. There's another complete separate chapter about away from reactor storage. And of course, when you have away from reactor storage, that brings up the issue of transportation, which is also covered inadequately, very shallowly in this document. And of course, the court ruled and ordered the NRC to deal with the repository issue, the lack of a repository. or presence of a repository. And so this document has to do with all of those things, not just on-site storage. And I guess I'll just conclude by sharing that the first time I heard about nuclear waste confidence, the phrase was at Clinton, Illinois, at the early site permit public meeting in March of 2003. And a farmer, whose name I don't know, in the front row asked the NRC that night, how can you talk about building a new reactor? You haven't dealt with the waste at the old reactor here. And several NRC people punted to each other, not knowing how to answer this gentleman. And finally, the facilitator of that meeting had to intervene when the final NRC staffer was about to punt the question to Exelon, who was in the room, and reminded his colleagues from NRC that there's this nuclear waste confidence rule and policy. And I just wanted to hold up, and I'll submit this for the record, something we had at Chicago the other night, the Nuclear Energy Information Service generated. It shows Lucy and Charlie Brown. Lucy's holding the football, the radiation symbol on it. She's got an NRC jersey on. And it says, "Deja vu all over again." And Lucy says to Charlie Brown, who is the public, "I've got every confidence that we can dispose of this thing, Charlie. Really, really." So the real issue here is whether or not to license new reactors, to extend the licenses of old reactors, and the preferred alternative in the CIS should be stop licensing reactors, stop making high-level radioactive waste for which there is no solution. Thank you.
Thank you. Carrie, to close off, that the staff will be here till at least 5 o'clock. Carrie?
Thanks, Jim. And thanks everyone for coming out today and participating. We do appreciate hearing from you and everyone's diverse views, and we appreciate your attendance and your respect for all the speakers in the room today, and we look forward to receiving any further comments you might have. Thank you.